Imagine a brilliant detective who lives only for his job, and a professional criminal who follows the exact same philosophy. One hunts criminals, the other plans crimes. Both are disciplined, intelligent, and willing to sacrifice almost everything for their work. And when their paths finally collide, Los Angeles becomes the battlefield. This is the story of Heat. The movie follows two men on opposite sides of the law. One is a highly dedicated police detective determined to bring dangerous criminals to justice. The other is a professional thief who leads a small crew of extremely experienced criminals. The thieves don't behave like ordinary criminals. They carefully plan their operations, study security systems, and try to disappear before the police can identify them. But their biggest weakness is the confidence that comes from being good at what they do. And the detective hunting them is just as determined. The professional thieves operate with strict discipline. Their leader believes that emotional attachments can become weaknesses, so he tries to keep his personal life separate from his criminal career. His crew includes men with different personalities and skills, but they work together because they trust each other's abilities. Their operations are carefully organized. However, after one robbery goes wrong, they attract the attention of the police. The detective begins connecting the evidence. Instead of simply chasing suspects, he studies their behavior and tries to understand how they think. Soon, he realizes that the criminals he's hunting are not amateurs. They're professionals, and that makes catching them much harder. The detective becomes increasingly focused on the case. But his dedication comes at a cost. His work consumes his life, creating tension in his personal relationships. He spends so much time chasing criminals that the line between his professional life and private life begins to disappear. Meanwhile, the criminal leader faces a similar problem. He wants freedom, but his lifestyle makes genuine relationships extremely difficult. Both men begin realizing that they have more in common than they would ever admit. They simply made different choices. One chose the law, the other chose crime. Eventually, the detective gets close enough to identify the people behind the robberies. The pressure increases. The criminals know the police are watching them, while the detective knows that one mistake could allow them to escape. The situation becomes a psychological battle. Each side studies the other. Each side tries to predict the next move. And eventually, the two leaders come face to face. Instead of immediately attacking each other, they have a surprisingly calm conversation. They recognize something familiar in one another. Both are extremely committed to their chosen lives. Both understand sacrifice. And both know that if circumstances force them into conflict, neither man is likely to surrender easily. But despite their mutual respect, they remain enemies. The criminals attempt another major operation. This time, however, the police are prepared. The operation turns into chaos, and the criminals are forced to fight their way out. The consequences are devastating. People are lost, relationships collapse, and the criminal crew begins to fall apart. The detective continues the pursuit, refusing to let the case go. The criminal leader, meanwhile, realizes that the life he has built may be disappearing. His carefully controlled world has become unpredictable. Now he has to make a choice. Escape while he still can, or settle unfinished business. The detective eventually gets close enough to stop him. The final confrontation becomes a desperate game of survival. There is no easy victory. The two men have spent the entire movie moving toward this moment. One represents justice. The other represents a life built outside the law. But the movie makes something clear. Sometimes the person standing on the opposite side of the law can understand you better than anyone on your own side. In the end, their choices determine their fate. The criminal's refusal to completely abandon his old life ultimately catches up with him. The detective survives, but his victory comes with a heavy emotional cost. Heat isn't simply a story about cops and robbers. It's a story about obsession, loneliness, discipline, and the price people pay when they allow one purpose to control their entire lives. The detective and the criminal are opposites, yet they mirror each other. Both are highly skilled. Both are isolated. Both sacrifice relationships for their work. And both eventually discover that every choice has consequences. That's what makes Heat more than a crime movie. It's a story about two men who understand each other perfectly, while standing on completely different sides of the law. If you enjoyed this recap, subscribe for more 5-minute movie breakdowns.